Welcome to Brick by Brick, Building Wealth Through Homeownership. I am Kim Von Dohren, your Realtor.
And I'm your banker, Ed Marko. Time for part 2 of investing in real estate for beginners, or the basics. Today we're going to talk about ways to get money. Where does the money come from?
Right. This is probably the most popular question because people who want to start have no idea, where do I get the money to do this?
Right. I mean, if you've got a lot of money in the bank, you can do this that way. But if you've got a lot of money, you don't need to make more money, maybe. So
Right. Or this way.
Right.
Because although this is a way, it's not the only way, and it's not always the easiest way.
Right. I think it's the easiest way because I understand it and I can touch it. That's why I like real estate. I can touch it. If I buy Apple stock, I know I have Apple stock, but I can't touch it,
Right.
or really any other investment. Real estate, I can touch. I can look at it and know that it's there. That's why I like it.
Yeah.
And anyway, I digress. So there are a lot of different ways to get money to purchase real estate. The first one, or the most popular one that I see people use, really is a HELOC, or a home equity line of credit, or sometimes just a cash out refinance on their existing home that they own.
Right.
So you want to look at your house as a tool, as your own personal bank. So if you've got a home that you bought 10 years ago and you've been paying on it for 10 years, you probably have quite a few $1,000s worth of equity in that home that can be pulled out either through refinancing and then taking the cash that's available and putting it in the bank after closing. You just put that in the bank and you use that as your money for down payment and closing costs, and maybe for fixing up homes that you're either buying or going to rent.
Which we call a cash out refinance.
Correct. That's a cash out refinance. And the reason for that is you get the cash out and it's one time. The advantages to that are you'll have a new regular monthly mortgage payment on your home. You will always know what that mortgage payment is if you do a fixed rate mortgage. And there's no change to that. And then you have that money in a pile to use as you want. Once you're done, and then you've got to go put it back, though. You put it back. But that's your money. The other way to do that same thing to get cash out of your existing home is through a home equity line of credit. This is my preferred method. And the reason for that is it forces you to exercise control over yourself. A home equity line of credit it's the same thing. You're going to go into the bank. You're going to say, I've got $100,000 worth of equity in my house. I want to borrow that out. They're going to set up a home equity line of credit. They might let you borrow 80% of that, 85% of it, 90% of it, whatever that particular bank's rules are. You just got to abide by their rules. Well, let's say you can get a $90,000 home equity line of credit based on the equity that's in your home. That's essentially a really big credit card with a remarkably low interest rate.
Right. So for the folks who aren't familiar, it is revolving debt, meaning you can use it, pay it back, and use it again and pay it back like a credit card.
Exactly. You get to use it over and over and over again. The thing that I like about it is because it is very visual. Like if you're using your own money, once the money's gone, you kind of forget that you owe yourself that money. But if you've got a home equity line of credit, you're going to be paying a little bit of an interest payment on it. So you're going to want to end that as quickly as possible. And you also want to put it back as quickly as possible because you're going to see that monthly bill, every month. Oh, geez, I used $80,000 of the $90,000 line that I have to buy a house and make improvements on it. We either want to rent that and start paying that back as quickly as possible, or flip it. Once we flip it, we get all the money back and we put it back and we do it again. So those are the two most familiar: home equity line of credit and a cash out refi.
Okay. So can I ask questions now?
Yes, please.
So talk, if you will, about the differences in the interest rates associated with those two loan products. So first, the cash out refinance. What's the interest rate situation with that?
So right now, interest rates are very stable. I don't want to super date the podcast or anything like that, but you're in the upper sixes right now. It's pretty solid. when you do a cash out refinance, you're going to have a fixed rate. Most of the time, you'll have a fixed rate mortgage, and then you'll have a fixed payment, and that's what it is.
And that starts over for whatever term you choose. If you
Mhm.
did a cash out refinance for another 30 years, then it's a 30-year mortgage. You can do less. You can do a shorter term.
When you're investing in real estate, if this is what you're going to do to build wealth, you should finance things as long as humanly possible to get the payment as low as possible so that you have additional borrowing power. It's all about being able to borrow. So you need to keep your debt to income ratio as low as possible. I actually wanted to start with this, but I'm going to say it right now. The first thing you need to do if you're going to go into investing in real estate is to get your finances completely under control. You want to get yourself in a position where you have little to no credit card debt. None is best. You want to have credit cards because you're probably going to use them to make improvements, but then you're going to want to pay them off as quick as possible. You want to, again, I said before, drive the cheapest car you can stand. If you really want to go all out investing in real estate, you don't want to have a car payment. All of these things eat into your ability to borrow. So you want to have your credit score as high as possible, and you want to have your debt to income ratio as low as possible so that you have a huge ability to borrow. And that is the big downside to me on a cash out refinance. You're borrowing all of that money in a lump sum, and the only way to reduce your payment that you've blown up as big as possible is to pay it off or refinance it. Whereas with the other product that we'll talk about, the home equity line of credit, you pay that off, that there you have the ability to borrow, but you're not using it, so there's no payment. So you've got additional now you can still borrow more. You can continue to borrow.
Right.
That's why I like the home equity line of credit versus the cash out.
So the home equity line of credit has what kind of an interest rate?
So that's
You don't
called
have to give me the amount,
right.
but what type?
So it's an adjustable rate mortgage. Adjustable rate mortgages initially when you get them will have a lower interest rate, generally for the first 6 months. And then after that, they go to prevailing rate. So, that on a line of credit, because there's greater risk to the bank, is probably going to be a quarter to a half a percent, maybe even an entire point higher than a traditional mortgage. But when you're using it, you're probably only paying interest on the money that you're using. So you're not making a very large payment until you actually pay it off after you've finished your project, after you've done what you're going to do. The way that you pay off that HELOC is twofold. Either when you flip the house, you're going to get this great windfall. You're going to pay yourself off, pay that off. You have to make at least enough money to do that, or you're doing it wrong, right?
Yes.
So you're going to pay that off. Or the other way that you would pay that off is once you bought a house that you're going to keep as a rental, once you have it fixed up and pretty, and rented, you've got it rented, you're going to refinance that house onto a conventional investment mortgage so that you do have a fixed payment on that house. And that's a process that you would talk to a banker about. It's not a very hard process, though. It's not a very hard process, but there is time limits and things like that in which that you have to wait before you can do it. So you want to be able to afford that debt, that additional debt that you took on. I would say you want to be able to afford that at least for 6 or 7 months to make sure that you're comfortable and you have the time that you need to make all these adjustments.
Okay. So with the line of credit, you have more flexibility, but you're paying a higher interest rate.
Correct.
And the payment is temporary till you pay it back.
Correct.
And with the cash out refinance, you've now upped your mortgage payment for the next 20, 30 years, however long you take that new mortgage out for.
Correct.
So those are the things you have to discern for yourself personally, what makes more sense for you,
Correct.
right? Given the advice we've suggested. Now, the second piece to that is if I'm going to use the line of credit, you brought up the keeping the property instead of flipping the property. You flip the property, you pay the line of credit back. If you don't and you hold it, what was your suggestion for paying off that line of credit.
So the way that most people would go about this that are savvy at this, they're working the system to their advantage. Let's say you've got your home equity line of credit, you're looking at a property and you need $50,000 for down payment money to qualify for a conventional investment property mortgage where they're going to allow you to finance 75% of the value of the property at time of purchase.
And this is for an investment loan.
For an investment, yeah. We have separate mortgages for that. So you'd get that investment property mortgage, 75% at the value at time of purchase. You've used your $50,000 for down payment and closing costs. Let's just make it real easy and say you owe $200 or $150,000 plus the $50,000 on your home equity line of credit. So you got, a total of $200,000, $150 through the conventional mortgage, $50 in fees and down payment and all of that on your HELOC. So now you've got two mortgages that you're paying on this property that you bought.
Your HELOC on your personal residence.
Right.
And the mortgage on the investment property that you just purchased.
And yes. And we're assuming that you purchase that you're going to purchase a property that needs refurbishing. It's always we're looking for lumps of coal that we can turn into diamonds. So you've got your lump of coal. You're going to use another, say, $20,000 of your home equity line of credit to make all the improvements. We're going to fix the roof. We're going to paint it. We're going to put floors in. We're going to fix up the countertops. We're going to refurbish the cabinets. All the things that we're going to do to make this a desirable place for somebody to rent. We get it all done. It's all finished. We've got a total of $220,000 in this. We're able to rent it for $2,500 a month. We rent it for $2,500 a month. We need to wait 6 months before we can refinance an investment property. Currently, this is a federal guideline. It changes. It's a moving ball. Currently, it's 6 months before you can cash out. You can refinance whenever you want based on the purchase price, but we don't want to do that. We want to cash out.
So just for people who aren't familiar.
Yes.
That's a lot of steps they're already having to take.
Yes.
So just to recap a little bit, they're going to take out a investment mortgage on an investment property that needs some work.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to use the line of credit on their primary residence to pay for the down money, for any closing costs or fees, and they're going to use that line of credit also to refurbish the property.
Correct.
The calculations you were using, you're $220,000 in.
That's what you're in.
On this property.
Right.
Now you're going to rent it out. Is that
correct? You're going to rent it out. I'm just pulling numbers out of the air.
Right.
$2,500. That's going to cover your mortgage, and more than cover your mortgage. You're going to have a cash flow. You always want these to cash flow.
I'm going to ask you this question. When you are doing the borrowing, when you are asking for the money from the bank, now the line of credit you had probably had existing before you started looking.
You should, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
For a property to purchase.
Mm-hmm.
When I come to you as an investment mortgage lender, mm-hmm. and I say to you, this is my intention, I'm going to rent it. Will you use the rental income that is going to come 6 months down the road and allow us to use that as income when you're doing our debt to income calculation?
Not yet.
Okay.
It would have to be rented now.
Okay.
And we would have to have at least a 1-year lease, which kind of defeats your ability to fix up the place.
Okay.
Because what you're really wanting to do is fix up the place so we can, at that put 6 months down the line, then what we're going to do after we've carried that debt now for 6 months on the HELOC and the other regular mortgage, we're going to want to do what's called a cash out refinance. So we can borrow up to 75% of the value of that property after we've improved it. So we're going to say with our improvements, the house went up in value to roughly $350,000. The appraiser is going to look at a rental property a couple of different ways, differently than they look at a primary residence. The primary residence doesn't get an income calculation on it because there is no income from it.
Right.
You're just living in it. But the rental property, they're going to look at the value of the house compared to the houses around it. They're going to look at the value of the house compared to how much income it generates. So on a house of this nature, you're going to again generate roughly, you're going to get a figure of about 350 to 370, somewhere in that general range. And you want to, you need to do the calculations for this before you actually make the improvements. I'm just using one example. This is an example. This isn't every example. But in this example, this is from the real world, the house, when it was done, it appraised for $368,000. We owed two and a quarter. So we're going to pay back the two and a quarter. We're going to pay back the 150 that we borrowed from the original mortgage that we had on it. We're going to pay back the 50 that we used for down payment and closing costs. And we're going to pay back the 20 that we used to improve the house. When that's all paid off, we're going to be left with, right? Yeah, we're going to be left with $36,000.
Is the house $368,000 in value?
It's $368,000 in value.
That's the ARV, the after rehab value.
Right, after rehab value. You can borrow 25% of that. That's $276,000 that you're borrowing against the house. You're still going to cash flow on that property, by the way, if you run the numbers on all of this.
Say that again. I think you might have said that backwards. You can borrow
$276,000,
which is what percentage?
That's 25%.
25%?
Or 75%. Thank you. 75%. Okay. You borrow 75% of that.
Because you have to have 25% invested in the property, whether that was money you paid up front or now it's equity you've built.
Now it's equity. You need to leave that equity in.
Through rehabbing the property.
Right. But in this example, you're going to walk away from that transaction with $56,000 in cash. So you've paid off your $90,000 HELOC and made $56,000. You now have $146,000 of money between what you have access to from lending and what you have made through the process in equity that's usable to repeat this process. Now this time you might be able to do 2 units and then continue the process. That's if you're doing a rental.
Now, what happens when I pull that cash out from the loan? So now it's the $368,000 value, and I've borrowed up to the 75% that I can borrow. I've paid back all of the loans that I owed to make this situation occur.
Right.
And then I have this cash left over.
Mm-hmm.
Don't I have to pay taxes on that?
You do not. You do not pay tax on borrowed money. But you have that, it's your money. You can do whatever you want with it. I have watched people do this and they do something stupid. They'll buy a car. They'll go on vacation. They'll use the money for anything except reinvesting in another house. And that's not the way you do it. You need to discipline yourself if this is what you want to do to build wealth. And certainly under this circumstance, if you could repeat this process a few times a year over the course of, say, a 10-year period, you're going to be a very wealthy person, a very wealthy person.
And if you didn't enjoy the process, even if you didn't enjoy the process and you don't want to do it again, you now still have a chunk of change that you can invest in another way, whether you invested in stocks or bonds or some other form of an investment.
Correct.
But I do think what you're trying to say is that money that you are building should be for the purposes of having it generate more money. So this money should make you more money. It should not sit somewhere or purchase something that's kind of doesn't, again, if you take that money and you go buy a car, that car's only going to depreciate in value over time. So now all of that hard work turned into something that you may enjoy for a while, but that will go away.
Correct.
And realistically, I think that's the difference between rich people and poor people. Rich people get money and they say, how do I use this to make me more money?
Right.
Rather than how do I use this to go splurge and have some luxurious experience?
Right. And if you made $56,000 score and you want to go on a vacation that's, $5,000 or $6,000, you probably deserve that.
Right.
But don't be foolhardy. If you did all of this because you needed money to get a new car, go ahead and get a used car. Never buy a new car. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. So that's the most traditional way that people will purchase a home, whether it's to flip or to rent. And bear in mind, these conventional investment property mortgages have rules to them. If it's a single unit, you need 25% down. You can borrow 75% of the purchase price or the appraised value, whichever is lesser at time of sale. If it's 2 to 4 units, you need to put 30% down. You can borrow 70%. Again, same rule of a purchase price or appraised value, whichever is less. If it's got 5 units or more, you need to start talking to a commercial lender. And that's a horse of a different color. I'm not even going to get into it.
Right.
Most people that are investing in real estate on their own probably shouldn't be looking at anything more than 4 units. 4 units is tough to manage on its own.
Right.
5, it's a whole other ballgame, and that's why it's a whole other type of lending. In addition, though, to any more questions about that type of lending?
Nope.
So in addition to that, there are 2 other methods for getting money to purchase houses. One is private lenders. A private lender might be a wealthy friend or family member, somebody that's looking to, for lack of a better term, partner with you. They're willing to give you a large amount of money for a short period of time at a reasonable interest rate so that they get a return on their investment. And it's just what they call private money. It's exactly that. It's just a
Right.
private money lender. If you're going to do this, you want to seek out people that already invest in real estate, go where they go, be friends with them and their friends, and you will meet private money lenders. They're just out there, like
Right.
angel investors, I think you used.
Yeah. And you want to be someone who is trustworthy. So
Mm,
you make sure that you are, demonstrating that you're capable, that you're qualified, that you're dedicated, and that you're honest because folks are not going to want to give you $100,000 if they don't trust that you're actually going to give it back to them. So you can't just be kind of flying by the seat of your pants. You better have a plan.
right. Yes, absolutely. You need to have a business plan, and that's something we could talk about at a later time too. But in addition to that, there's a thing out there called a hard money lender. And these are generally institutions or groups of people that own a company that kind of functions like a bank, though it's not a bank, but it is a lending institution of sorts.
The loan sharks of real estate.
Pretty much. I mean, there's a reason they're called hard money lenders,
Yes, right. Yeah.
but there's a time and a place for them.
Absolutely. They are valuable in the real estate investment industry. They're just expensive.
Yeah.
The interest rates will be very high
Yeah.
typically.
Higher rates, larger fees, shorter term.
Mhm.
And
Terms of like 6 months, a year.
yeah,
We're really not talking a long time.
right.
But again, when you're looking at the project as a whole, even if it's expensive money, lots of people don't wanna pay for expensive money, but if you still get to make money and if you just make 5,000 less because you had to use hard money, but you still make 40, is it worth it?
Yeah,
You just
absolutely.
have to
Yeah.
weigh those things out.
Yeah, you do. And the other thing that a hard money lender can do that most conventional lenders can't do is they can move fast, like lightning fast.
Right.
So when you find what's called a fire sale or something like that, where they say, I would take, this ridiculously low amount of money for this property, but I need to close in 2 weeks. That's almost your only option is either a private money lender or a hard money lender.
Right.
Or, if you're on your third flip and you now have $200,000 in the bank in actual cash money, you can be your own hard money lender.
Right.
And you can talk to an accountant about how you get paid to do that to yourself. That's kind of cool too.
Right. And, so you can have private investors who just wanna give you the money and they don't want any part of it. They're just looking for a specific rate of return. Or you can partner with people. That's another way to do it. And then pool your money together.
Yes.
Just make sure you choose someone who shares a value system similar to your own, or you will have some struggles for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Partnering it's a double-edged sword. You need to know the person or people you're partnering with. And you better be comfortable with them and they better be comfortable with you. Because once you enter into a real estate contract, there's no you can't just say, oh, I want a divorce and walk away. This is real estate.
Right.
The law is against you,
Yeah.
not for you. You need to complete your obligations
Right. And
or come to an equitable split.
Yes.
That goes through the court. It all gets filed at the courthouse.
I say clarify everything in writing up front. Doesn't matter if it's your mother.
Right.
Like, put it in writing so that there's no misunderstanding about what you intended or what they intended. If it is in writing and everybody's clear about this is what we agreed to, then you go back to wherever you wrote that down and you say, well, look, this is what we agreed to. And you just want to clarify as many things as possible up front. And don't say, it's my relative, it's my friend, it's my spouse, because I promise you, it doesn't matter.
Right. No.
It doesn't matter because things happen. People see things differently, and you just need to be really clear that you are always create a way out for both of you, as well as a way in.
Yep.
Create a way out. How are we both going to exit this if it doesn't work out? We know that's not going to happen, but how are we going to do it if it does?
Right. In the event, what's our exit strategy?
That's right.
How are we going to end it? You're
Right.
starting something, you want to know how you're going to end it.
That's right.
That's the best way to be crystal clear with everybody too. That keeps you friends. If everybody knows what everybody knows, it goes smooth.
Right.
If you don't know what they don't know, it doesn't go so smooth.
Right.
So anyway, that's pretty much it there. I mean, we've got HELOCs, home equity line of credit. It's called a HELOC, cash out refinance, conventional investment property mortgages, private money lenders, and hard money lenders, and then partnering.
Yes. There's one thing we didn't mention, which is a home equity loan, which is it's a term loan. So it has a set term, a set interest rate. You get the lump sum. You can pay the whole thing back.
But then would have to reapply to use
Correct.
it again.
Yes.
Yeah. Probably why I rarely think of that.
But I just didn't want to leave it out.
Yes. Yes, they are available too. You could just do a straight up loan.
Yes. If the line of credit scares you or the fluctuating interest rates scare you, that would be another way.
Correct.
Okay. I think we've covered the ways in which you can get some money if you want to build your real estate portfolio or even start by using your own personal residence or other methods.
Absolutely. Next time, we're going to talk about how to purchase a house and flip it.
Okay.
That's going to be a fun one. Until then, I'm Ed Marko.
And I am Kim Von Dohren.
You have been listening to Brick by Brick. Be sure and subscribe, post questions for future episodes, or comment. This is a Super Squirrel production, Super Squirrel Studios, Stony Creek Mills, Pennsylvania.